Is good, guys. Today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. Finally overcoming being sick. So I am back. I will be starting to post recaps again. Sorry for the delay. But with that being said, first of all, thank you guys so much for, I believe, 4,300 subs. Absolutely mind blowing to me. And then number two, we now have a Lucid code. So if you would like to use code Reese at Lucid, make sure you do. And then open a ticket inside the Discord to be entered into a giveaway. I'll be giving away as many accounts as I possibly can every single week. And it will go up every single week. So first week, we are doing 2 accounts. And it should be like 5 accounts next week. So tap in if you aren't already. But with that being said, let's start going over my one trade that I took today, how I found my high time frame deal well, all the good things, starting on the high time frame, right? So going on to the 4-hour. Well, initially coming into the day, I marked out our current range right here and marked out what? Well, I see that inside of this discount, which we are currently trading inside of Asia down here last night. Well, we swept out this intermediate low inside of this bullish 4-hour that then led to us starting to now disrespect these bearish gaps. So because we are respecting discounted bullish gaps and now disrespecting premiumed bearish gaps, I was assuming that this range high is going to get hit. And obviously, right, coming in the day, we had what? Well, we had CPI, and that high did end up getting hit a little bit before pre-market. So with that idea, what are my new conditions? Well, because that high is now hit, we still have this hourly candle open until 10 a.m. So if we are going to react off of this and print a high time from rejection wick, I would like to see us close back within this 1-hour gap right here. However, if we are going to be bullish, I would still like to see us return into this 15-minute fair value gap at market open to then trade higher. So coming into the day, I had really 2 possible scenarios. Either we trade higher, or excuse me, we displace lower through this 15-minute, disrespecting it to then take some sort of continuation towards data lows, because data is a high time frame DOL and a very high probability DOL. But because of what it traded into, right, data did what? Well, data traded into this 1-hour gap, leading to displacement, now opening up a 15-minute condition. If this 15-minute condition gets respected at market open, then I can expect us to just continue that same trend higher and eventually hit these relative equal highs and over on ES all-time highs all the way up there. So with that being said, zooming into market open, let's see what actually happened. Well, at 9:30, what goes on? Well, let me mark out this 9:30 price. And you can see that we end up trading higher, sweeping out this recent buy side once again before now displacing lower into our 15-minute condition, right? From this point, this is where we can now start to actually develop a trade idea. Right, we can have the idea of possible longs from this. However, we need to see low time frame structure built up, because after all, we don't want to just be targeting a singular swing high for a Judas, right? You would like to see your low time frame targets up here. So initially, right, I wanted to see us, if we were going to be bullish, consolidate a little bit before then getting some sort of model like this inside of that 15-minute. So fast forwarding, we end up not doing that and instead just displacing through this 15-minute. Now starting to do what? Well, we open up. I'm going to go ahead and delete these 15-minute and 1-hour conditions. We now open up this sponsored leg of price action, right? On this sponsored leg of price action that's sponsored from the 1-hour to the left, where we now have that high time frame wick, right? Notice we're now respecting this 1-hour gap, printing that wick. Going back to the 1-minute, we now open up this sponsored leg of price action, right? This is going to be a very important area for price, right? Because it's not just a singular 5-minute gap that is sponsored, it is going to be the entire leg. So with that idea in mind, right, we trade back into this 3-minute and this 4-minute, where we then start to now disrespect the opposing bias once again. Therefore, we can argue the fact that this 15-minute gap sitting over here is not beating, or excuse me, we can argue the fact that these low time frame sponsored gaps are being our high time frame condition, being the 15-minute. So we can assume that that 15-minute is now going to be disrespected, right? What does that now confirm? Well, it confirms us respecting our bearish condition, right? For our high time frame conditions, we have what? Bearish is getting respected, while bullish is getting disrespected. With this in mind, what can we confirm? Well, we can now confirm our range low, right? With this idea in mind, our conditions are now both confirmed because we're respecting these low time frame gaps over our high time frame. So our conditions are now both defined. We can now say that we're going to go to this data low, right? Because after all, it is a very strong draw on liquidity. So with that in mind, right, all you need to look for now is some sort of entry. And this is where your first possible trade idea is presented. You get this 1 minute inversion off of EQ of this sponsored leg, as well as this 3 and 4 minute gap on inside of it. Now, why do I not want to take this trade, and why did I wait for the win setup after it? Well, it's simply due to the fact that you have no low time frame accumulation here, right? Whenever you are in a continuation scenario, you want to wait for at least two lows to be generated, right? Meaning that you have a stop rate of a recent swing high on that first leg, as well as a low time frame accumulation zone down here, right? So in this scenario, we just have that one swing low, so we are lacking that, and I just decided to fade this trade. Now, it does end up playing out a little bit. However, it does inevitably trade up higher. Any longs from here, not really valid, simply due to the fact that you have no key level right here to distribute price up. But with that being said, you now open up this 5 minute gap right here. This 5 minute gap is your final if this then that statement, right? If this 5 minute gap gets inverse, then I can assume that we're going to just, continue to get some sort of continuation higher. But if this 5 minute gap gets respected, then I can assume that we will, continue my high time frame chart idea, because my high time frame conditions have been confirmed already. Now, on this, excuse me one second. It's whatever. Now on this actual 5 minute, we end up inversing it, right? Why do I not care about us inversing this 5 minute and still taking the trade anyways? Well, looking over at ES, what does ES continue to also do? ES does the exact same thing, where we also open up this sponsored leg of price action, opening up this 5 minute. This 5 minute on ES is completely unmitigated until NQ reaches all the way up here, which just happened to inverse that 5 minute, right? It's not like this 5 minute is the end all be all, but with how perfect ES looks, to still take some sort of continuation short and my high time frame narrative back in this trade idea, right? I can kind of just use ES's 5 minute as my key level and argue that, this 4 minute and 3 minute gap that are still open will do completely fine. So after that, right, what has our time done so far? Notice, let me go to right here, 930 does what at the highest? Well, we manipulate higher, so we've not this recent buy side, followed by expansion lower, now opening up this sponsored leg of price action. We then get a swing high put in right here, right? Then a swing low, right? Is there really anything significant going on right here? No, right? These are both kind of a low resistant liquidity pool at the moment, because it's just a singular swing that didn't take out anything else. So from that point, we now get our reaccumulation, right? So we now have an accumulation zone down here, where then 945 opens up. And what does 945 do, right? You can see 945 open right here. 945 puts in a temporary wick lower, generating liquidity with this recent low, before then manipulating higher at this recent high, which is this one inside of that 5 minute gap. Over on ES, we also tap into this same recent high, stop rating it, before now we have everything we need. Right at this point, my high time frame narrative is aligned, because I have confirmed where my DOL is, being this data low, through my conditions. The disrespect of this 15 minute, that is also even more confirmed at 945 once we end up inversing it, and us respecting that 1 hour gap to the left, printing that high time frame wick, and now respecting these lower time frame gaps on top of it. From this point, I am now aligned with price, and I am now aligned with time. All I need is some sort of entry trigger on this current leg of price action, which is this leg right here, to take some sort of inversion to get me into the trade idea. To take some sort of trade like this, targeting my low hanging fruit being this low resistance right here, using data as my overall magnet for price to go lower. So with that being said, what is the mechanically, I say that with quotations, correct trade to take? Well, it would be this 3 minute inversion right here. However, for me personally, based off of what this 3 minute is attacking and defending, right, I'm not expecting this to play out. This 5 minute gap getting inversed is just, to me, looking like a pattern trade. So if I was going to take this long, I'd expect it to fail anyways. So on top of that, we also have the 4 and 3 minute. But with that being said, right, this 3 minute is doing what? What is this 3 minute attacking and defending? Well, it's attacking what is now going to be a high resistant high based off of ES, right? We just tapped equilibrium inside of that sponsored 5 minute, while we are still respecting bearish gaps. So it's going to be attacking a high resistant high, while it's defending what? Well, it's defending this little accumulation zone that also has low resistance. So it is now defending low resistance and attacking high resistance. Therefore, I'm just expecting it to get ran through anyways. And I did not care to wait for the highest time frame inversion. All I wanted was some form of displacement through these gaps, right? Now I am starting to, I've said this earlier in the year, but I want to start taking more discretionary entries, where when I have everything I need, I just need some form of displacement through my gaps to actually get into the trade. Now mechanically, yes, my entry trigger is not correct. However, find my high time frame narrative. All of you guys can benefit from this, right? finding your narrative for today, very simple. However, it could be complicated if you make it complicated, right? This 5-minute get an inverse. What's the narrative behind it? There's no narrative behind it. Therefore, we should continue to expect us to deliver lower. But from this displacement through that gap, I did end up getting into a short right here. Stop loss just at that recent high. TP was at this low right here, right? I had I was in for 5 cons total, but I TP'd 4 cons at this recent low, and I had a runner all the way to data. But, just taking my low-hanging fruit, taking my almost guaranteed profit. And I ended up never going break even, right? Does it make sense for me to go break even anywhere here? Not really, right? Why does it not make sense for me to go break even here? Well, what have we done to the left of me? Is there anything of high time frame significance to the left right here? Absolutely not, right? Same thing over on ES. There's no high time frame significance to the left other than data lows. If data lows was to get taken first, then I would just close my trade. However, because that never happened, right? I just ended up hitting TP, and it avoided me from what could have been a break even, because if my fill was a little bit worse down here. And my break even is like a single tick in profit. I would have gotten break even if I had not just, judged my pros and cons. Is my stop loss still protected? Is there a reasoning for me to go break even, or am I going break even because I'm in profit, right? Things of that nature. So you can see 10 EM does what? Well, 10 EM doesn't really have anywhere to manipulate into, because on top of that, is there anything new at my stop loss? No, there is not. And then looking at the 1 hour, we do what? Well, we just opened up a fresh 1 hour gap at that low that I'm already targeting. So excuse me, I can assume that I am just going to, 10 a.m. manipulate lower into that 1 hour gap, as well as 10 a.m. manipulate lower into the data lows first, before then having any type of high close to follow our high time frame bullish trend, right? So hopefully that makes sense over going over the day. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy, like, comment, sub. Code reset, Lucid, Tradeify, and Apex. I'm doing a giveaway weekly for all of these. Apex giveaway, 3 accounts a week if I can. At least 2, and then Tradeify is every 10 people, so 1 in 10 chance no matter what for Tradeify, and then Lucid is going to also be weekly for multiple accounts, so tap in there if you're not already. Also go live here almost every single day, so definitely tap in, a bunch of free sauce. But yeah, with that being said, love you guys, appreciate you guys all for watching. Tell somebody you love them, do something productive today, don't gamble, and I will see y'all later. Bye.